Hello again and welcome to another episode of the Franchise Everything podcast where we talk about everything and anything franchising. And once again today I'm in Melbourne at the offices or the headquarters of the Franchise Council of Australia. I'm joined by the CEO, Jay Westbury. Jay, how you going?
Hey, Happy New Year. Great to see you,
Thank you.
Down here in Melbourne.
Thank you. I did that all with one breath.
You did.
Holding my breath on that one. It was a long one. Thank you for having us here today. We've done some other filming here and everything as you always make the boardroom available for us. So I appreciate it.
No, it's great. I think it's a really great opportunity also for us just to be supporting, what you're doing and supporting franchisors and franchisees, getting the message out, talking about everything, as you say. That's what this podcast is all about.
Absolutely. And we had a chat on the phone earlier last week, I think it was. And a hot topic for you at the moment, and we're going to do on this one, is Payday Super.
Payday Super.
The thought is that people might not be ready for it.
Well, I think, A, they're not going to be ready, but B, I don't even know whether they've necessarily going to be fully across it because there hasn't been an awful lot of advertising going on.
Hasn't been a lot of noise at all.
There hasn't been. No. And even I say government will ramp that up, but do you listen to a government ad? I don't know. Even if they put it on TV, who watches TV now anyway? We all get our streaming from different sources. So, I just wanted to really, have a conversation with you about it, probably just to encapsulate it for everyone that's watching so you're just crystal clear on what we're talking about. As of the 1st of July, 2026, that's this year because it's 2026, we all, regardless of our size, there's no exemptions, there's no special circumstance, every business owner who has a payroll will have to pay the superannuation entitlement of 12% of the gross pay the day you make the pay. So if you're a weekly payroll, you'll have to pay the super eligible to all the employees weekly. If you're fortnightly, monthly, and so on. Many people now remit their super quarterly.
I was going to say mostly quarterly, isn't it? So it's going to have certainly cash flow implications to start with,
the cash flow
as well as admin.
That's the thing that's really got me concerned. So take a person who earns $750 a week. The tax on that's $78, but the super on that's $90. So you'll actually have to cash flow more than the gross, even though you might remit the tax in a month. Because you might do your BAS, you might be on an activity statement monthly. You could even maybe be on a BAS activity statement quarterly. Some people are. Most are on monthly. So from a cash flow point of view, probably the best way to think about it is I'm going to have to cash flow my gross rather than cash flowing my net on the pay cycle. And one of the things that we're really keen to understand, and we've just put a survey out this week about it, and it'll flow over the next few weeks, is do you think you might change your pay cycle? Because some people might think, well, I'm paying weekly now, I think I'll go to fortnightly. Well, the ramifications of that are also really large because you've got to get the employee to agree.
Have you had any feedback on that?
That's what prompted us to go and ask the question, right? And of course, the people that I'm most worried about, quite frankly, are the franchisees, the smallest end of the small franchisee that might have 5 or 6 employees who's currently on a weekly payroll cycle, probably doing it through one of the accounting packages maybe. So they might even be doing it on a spreadsheet.
You hope not.
Who knows? Yeah. But who knows how they're doing their payroll. There are some new products coming onto the market specifically for that micro end, and we're hopefully going to be able to introduce some of that in the not too distant future to try and help in advance of Payday Super. But it's getting all those ducks in a row and having the systems to automate the process and be ready to go. Now, Xero and MYOB and QuickBooks and all the accounting packages, of course, are all modifying their software to be able to accommodate these things. But if you're not on one of those pieces of software, and most of the smallest of small, they don't have fancy HR systems, fancy technologies and software. So that's a space we're looking at as well.
How long has this been brewing for? Has this been a discussion in government for a number of years, or is it because of certain instances of businesses falling over and people not having their entitlements?
Legislation was passed last year, so 2025. It still feels a bit weird saying that.
I know, you've got to remind yourself of it.
Exactly, yeah. So legislation's really been in place for a year. So we've had a year's notice. Why? I just think it was one of those things that this current government thought from an employee point of view, they'd get a kick of happiness from employees.
Boost, yeah.
I mean, to be perfectly, I'm an employee. The FCA is my employer. I don't own the FCA. And so do I want my super paid on the same day as my pay? Of course I do. I mean, you ask any employee, their answer is going to be yes. So I think it was populist legislation. It's a shame that small business didn't get an exemption. So many times with big pieces of, earth-moving kind of legislation like this is, and I don't think everyone's quite fully understood just how the gravity of this from a cash flow point of view in the Australian economy. Usually small business gets some sort of exemption. And they say, if you've got under a certain amount of employees, 10 or 15 employees, like happens with some of the unfair dismissal laws and various other industrial relation pieces, small business get exemptions.
But they're obviously drawing a line in the sand with superannuation. Because
this one was a line in the sand. Every employer in the country, regardless of whether you are a small two-man band or two-person band to Woolworths, has to move to Payday Super on the 1st of July.
Given the ATO has got more aggressive in their pursuit coming out of those COVID years and everything, people have racked up debts and everything.
Yes.
Do you see any crystal balling of maybe backing off a little bit there with this thing's going to be quite an impost on especially the smaller size businesses with their cash flow who are probably managing debts with that?
No. And sadly I say no for this reason. The ATO has had additional resources applied to it off the back of the last budget to ensure implementation. And of course, if you think about it from a union perspective, particularly some industries that are very heavily unionised, the monitoring and the checking of this is going to become, I think, far more fluid and more aggressive rather than the other way. And I think that from an ATO's point of view, will we see someone convicted in the first year? Well, hopefully not. But clearly, if they can snag and make a point of someone, they will. Now, would that be one small, hamburger joint? Probs not, but because they're more likely to go after the big end of town.
Fish, yeah.
But the big end of town have got the technology to deal with it. Right? So the main issue that really is on my mind is just getting ready and prepared and cash flowing the fact that 12% of your payroll needs to be paid on the same day as your pay cycle. And it needs to be started and thought about now, not on the 30th of June. And I think that's been our real messaging as we start to pump more of this information out to members. But it's not just, as you know, the FCA, predominantly our members are franchisors. So we're talking to head office. And I'm just hopeful many of those are really starting to think about it and getting the messaging out into the field, out into the franchisees, talking to them about it, getting the field managers to start talking about, what are you doing about Payday Super? The answer is probably, what's that?
Yeah, it's probably been number 10 on the list.
Yeah.
When we're talking about licensing, when we're talking about changes to the code, when we're talking about all sort of stuff in the last 6 or 7 months, this thing would have been, it's 2026 as well.
Even if, right? Yeah. Obviously, last year was code year and there was so much stuff that went on over the code and we're all still reveling in the pretty significant ramifications of some of those draconian inclusions that are in the code, and we wish, hope and pray that some of that stuff can get fixed and become more normal as we go forward. Having said that though, the code does dominate everyone's conversation and, the legal fraternity that's out there supporting the industry and getting all of the agreements rewritten and all that stuff's going on. None of those lawyers are talking about Payday Super because it's not their band.
It's not their remit, is it? They're not really.
And even from the accounting network's point of view, unless they're in a cash flow conversation with the client, they're probably not talking about Payday Super either. So I just think that was why I thought there was a great opportunity to talk to you about it, to elevate it as an issue, get people thinking about it. There are lots of resources on the ATO website to sort of get your head around it, talk about the calculation of it. We're putting out stuff as well, and we'll continue to put sort of one-time wonder. We're going to be pumping stuff out to get people thinking. And we as ourselves, the FCA is a small business. We employ 10 people. As of the 1st of July, we've got to find 12%. We pay fortnightly. So from the first fortnight in July, we've got to click the ticket for the super. We used to be, we are now, but we won't be then. We're a quarterly in arrears super payer now. But we got to readjust our own cash flow to deal with that.
So as we wrap up, your message then for franchisors now really about where they start to take action and what they start thinking about to get on top of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, getting the conversation in the field and in the narrative about being supportive of the networks of things that are looming and coming up. We're almost at February as a result of January just evaporating. We were only saying that before, right?
Yeah.
It's Australia Day's almost upon us. And I think getting everyone ready and prepared well in advance, not sort of talking about it in June and starting to think. And look, there's no reason why you can't implement it earlier if you want to. There's no rules or regulations
to
say
get ahead of that.
You can't say you get yourself ahead of it, start thinking about it from June, give yourself a test run. You of course you can do that if you want to, up to you. The other thing, I'll just finish off with this, is that the ATO is also closing down the super clearinghouse that they run, which of course is completely counterintuitive in my mind. But it's good to know, and everyone should know, that every superannuation fund does have a super clearing technology. Rest, obviously the partner here with FCA, they've talked to us. They've got a clearinghouse arrangement. You don't actually have to have a Rest super account to use the clearinghouse facility. And so that's that, load it up in one file, press the button, and then the clearinghouse distributes the funds rather than you having to have individual payments processed into your bank. I know this is very minutiae, but these things need to be thought about. And finding a new clearinghouse, we use the ATO clearinghouse now here at FCA, and we've already started to get ourselves ready to migrate to the Rest clearinghouse so that we're ahead of the game there as well, so that we're not caught out on the first fortnight when we have to pay the super and then the clearinghouse doesn't work. So there's some very functional stuff that needs to be thought about and considered. And I think the more the franchisors are starting through the field managers out talking to the franchisees about it, the better. Because I'd hate to think franchising.
Well, franchisees are the ones that are going to the ones that are really going to cop the brunt of it at their end.
They are, and they're probably the ones thinking, how am I going to handle it, particularly if they're not systems ready.
Yeah. Okay. So the onus is on franchisors to really dig in and make sure that they're ready.
Well, and of course, the other thing is since the Baker's Delight case, where basically fundamentally, in layman's terms, it says the franchisor is as responsible for the correct payment of wages to the franchisee's employees. Super doesn't get exempted from that.
No, but that's sort of been the case for – well, I would have thought that was assumed for many years now. That franchisors know that they're on the chopping block and they better be paid correctly in store.
And, of course, that may be the case, but now it's actually in precedent.
Yeah, of course.
So
excellent. All right, Jay.
Good on you.
Well, it's good to get it out there. Yeah. We'll get this out there as quick as we can to make sure that we can get some action taken on it.
Right.
Thanks again,
Look
Jay.
forward to working with you.
Excellent, mate.
Thanks.
And that's it again for another episode of the Franchise Everything podcast. We'll catch you in the next one soon.